Alright, so today we are talking about fractions as multiples of unit fractions. So as always, let's first begin with talking about some vocabulary words. So we know from yesterday that a multiple is basically skip counting, right? Okay, which is something that we've been doing since kindergarten. Okay, so for instance, 5, 10, 15, 20, etc. Okay, that's skip counting, which is counting by multiples of 5. Okay, now I also want to talk about the word factor. A factor is a number, or I should say numbers because it's at least 2. So numbers you multiply to get a product. Okay, so for instance, if I do 6 times 3 equals 18, the 6 and the 3 are factors. The reason I'm bringing that up is because students have a lot of problems sometimes taking these two words and mixing them up. Okay, we are not talking about factors today. Okay, we're not talking about factors. We're talking about multiples. So I'm talking about using skip counting today. Okay. The other word that we need to know is a unit fraction. Well, we know from last week's lesson with Ms. Stroba that uni means 1. So a unit fraction is a fraction with a numerator of 1. Okay, so for instance, 1/2, 1/10, 1/100th, 1/25th. Okay, any fraction where 1 is the numerator, that is a unit fraction. Okay, so what we're doing today is we're going to be talking about unit fractions as multiples. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of that. Let's say that I want to start with 1/4. Okay, just like up here when I was counting, what was I counting by in this list? I was counting by 5, wasn't I? Okay, so every time I went to my next multiple, really that's like saying 5 plus 5 is 10, right? 10 plus 5 is 15. 15 plus 5 is 20, and so on. So every time I'm adding another group of 5. Same concept down here. Only this time we're going to go by 1/4. So I'm going to draw you a picture. Okay, here's my 1/4. If I add another 1/4, what do I have? I have 2/4. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, yeah, that's also a 1/2. You are absolutely correct, but we're not going to worry about simplifying today, okay? We will simplify later this week, but today we don't care about simplifying. Okay, if I add one more 1/4, I get 3/4. If I add another one, I get 4/4. Okay, so look what's happening. My denominator is staying the same because remember the denominator tells me the value of each of these pieces. It tells me that this piece right here is worth 1/4. This piece is worth 1/4, and so on. Okay, so my denominator is not going to change. What's changing is how many pieces I have, which is the numerator. That tells me how many pieces. So when I started out with just this piece, it was 1/4. When I added this piece, I now have 2/4. Okay, so I can continue on adding my multiples just like this. Okay, now, yes, again, I know that once I start right here, all of these then become improper fractions, right? And if it's an improper fraction, that means that if I'm trying to like do an operation of some sort, I need to change to a mixed number. I know that. But again, I'm not going to worry about that today. I'm only going to worry about writing my multiples. Okay? So this is the basic of what we're going to do today. So how we're going to do that is with models and with numbers. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and clear this. And the first fraction that we're going to start with is whoa, that looked weird, is 2/3. Okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to draw a model of 2/3. I like to draw a peace sign for 3s. So I have 1, 2, and that's 2/3. Now, the technical direction that you're going to see today, I'm going to type that so you can see what that's going to say. It's going to say write the fraction. You don't have to write this down, just listen to it. Write the fraction as a multiple of a unit fraction. Okay, so we want to write that as a multiple of the unit fraction. Okay, so we're always going to go back to what is the unit fraction? What is one piece called? Okay, so what is this one piece, just this piece, called? That's 1/3. Okay, so I want to write this as a multiple. Well, if this piece is 1/3 and I add this piece, I now have 2/3, correct? Okay, and I'm sure at this point you're going, okay, and Miss Higby, what's your point? Well, it's real easy to see that in a picture, right? Okay, what you're going to see later on is we're going to have 2/3, and what we need to do is we need to come up with how many groups of 1/3 do we have? Okay, well, how many 1/3 do I have? Here's 1. And here's 2. So I have 2 groups of 1/3. Now, hopefully you're looking at that going, okay, that was super simple. I mean, there's nothing really new there, because there isn't. Okay, maybe just how I write it over here, but otherwise none of this is new. Okay, what if I have 5/6? We're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to draw a picture of 5/6. I usually do a rectangle for 6. Then I do 2 columns or 2 rows and 3 columns. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's going to look like this. So 5/6 is how many groups of, what is one piece worth? Just one. 1/6. So 1/6 is our unit fraction. So how many 1/6 do I have? 5. Okay? It really is that simple. So if you're going, okay, that's super, super easy, it is. Okay? I'm going to do one more. No, I'm going to do all of these with models because they are pretty easy models. Okay? I have now 3/2. Now, don't get confused about the fact that it's an improper fraction. Okay? I can still draw 3/2. This would be 2/2. And in order to draw 3/2, I would draw one more model. So there's my 3/2. Okay? And yes, that's otherwise known as 1 whole and a half. Okay? So how many groups of 1/2 do I have? 1, 2, 3. So 3 groups of 1/2. All right, now I have 6/5. Fifths are a little hard. I usually just do a rectangle for fifths, and then I draw 4 columns. So that's going to give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I need 6, so I need another picture. 1, 2, 3, 4, and color in 1. Now I have 6/5. Okay, so how many groups of, this would be 1/5, do I have? 6. Okay, very good. All right, so these next two, we're going to do the models, and then I'm going to give you some blanks, okay? I'll show you what I mean. So now I have 2 9ths, okay? 9ths, I usually like to draw kind of a rectangle and do 3 rows and 3 columns. So I have 2 9ths. Now, I want you to tell me what is going to go in these blanks. Okay? So first think about just one piece. What is one piece worth for this picture? One piece is worth 1/9. And how many groups do I have? Well, there's 2. So that's 2 groups of 1/9. Okay? And then the last one, we have 10/7. Those 7ths are kind of tricky. If I do 6 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Pardon me. So if I color in all of this, that's 7/7, but what I really want is 10/7, so I have to draw another picture. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if this is 7, 8, 9, 10. How many groups do I have? Okay. Well, for today, that just means how many pieces. So there's 10 pieces, okay? And what is the fraction we're dealing with? 1/7, okay? Now, groups of. Remember when you were doing this in 3rd grade when you were multiplying? Groups of is the same thing as saying multiply. So when I say 2 times 1/9, okay, I'm saying 2 groups of 1/9. Well, that's over here, 2/9, isn't it? Okay, that's going to lead us into our lesson tomorrow, which this is how you multiply. Multiplying and dividing fractions is so much easier than adding and subtracting. You do not have to worry about any changing of the fraction of the denominators. Okay, so 2 times 1 is 2, and 1 times 9 is 9, and there's your 2/9. Okay, so today's lesson of writing these things out as we're doing here is leading us to this tomorrow. Okay.